Question 1. Stakeholder feedback indicates concerns regarding potential irregularities in the submission process for a specific applicant during the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam. The feedback suggests that the applicant may have received unauthorized assistance. Considering the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam's regulatory framework, which of the following actions best upholds academic integrity and due process? Option A. Dismiss the feedback as unsubstantiated due to the potential negative publicity it could generate for the university. Option B. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged irregularities, gathering all relevant evidence and providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond to the findings before making any determination. Option C. Conduct a brief, informal review of the applicant's submission without further evidence gathering or direct communication with the applicant. Option D. Immediately disqualify the applicant based on the initial feedback to prevent any further compromise of the exam's integrity. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal investigation into the alleged irregularities, gathering all relevant evidence, and providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond to the findings before making any determination. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent tension between academic integrity, the university's reputation, and the need to address potential misconduct fairly and transparently. The AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam regulations, as per the provided exam framework, mandate a rigorous and fair assessment process. The university's internal guidelines, which would be referenced in such a situation, would outline procedures for handling suspected academic dishonesty. The challenge lies in balancing the need to investigate thoroughly with the rights of the applicant and the integrity of the examination process. Correct approach involves a systematic and evidence-based investigation, adhering strictly to the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam's established procedures for academic misconduct. This approach prioritizes fairness, due process, and the upholding of academic standards. It requires gathering all relevant evidence, providing the applicant with an opportunity to respond, and making a decision based on the established regulations and evidence. This aligns with the university's commitment to academic excellence and its responsibility to ensure a level playing field for all applicants. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without a proper investigation fails to uphold the principles of due process. It presumes guilt without providing the applicant an opportunity to present their case or explain the circumstances, which is contrary to fair academic assessment practices. Another incorrect approach, which involves ignoring the feedback due to potential reputational damage, compromises the integrity of the examination process and the university's commitment to fairness. This could lead to admitting unqualified candidates or failing to address genuine misconduct, thereby undermining the academic standards the university strives to maintain. A third incorrect approach, which involves a superficial review without thorough evidence gathering, risks making an unjust decision and failing to identify systemic issues if they exist. This approach neglects the university's duty to conduct a comprehensive and impartial inquiry. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with acknowledging the stakeholder feedback. They must then consult the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam's specific regulations and the university's internal policies on academic integrity. The next step is to initiate a formal investigation, collecting all pertinent evidence objectively. This includes reviewing the examination materials, any reported anomalies, and potentially seeking further information. Crucially, the applicant must be informed of the allegations and given a fair opportunity to respond. Finally, a decision should be made based solely on the gathered evidence and in strict accordance with the university's established procedures and regulatory framework. Question 2. Research into the AGH University of Science and Technology's academic integrity guidelines reveals that a student has submitted a draft of their assignment containing significant portions of text that appear to be directly lifted from external sources without proper attribution. As an instructor, what is the most appropriate initial course of action to uphold the university's regulatory framework? Option A. Directly inform the student about the university's specific regulations on plagiarism and the necessity of proper citation, offering guidance on how to rectify the assignment. Option B. Immediately report the student to the university's Academic Misconduct Committee for potential plagiarism. Option C. Advise the student to be more careful with their wording in future submissions without explicitly mentioning plagiarism or university policy. Option D. Suggest the student remove the questionable text from their assignment to avoid any potential issues. The correct answer is A. Directly inform the student about the university's specific regulations on plagiarism and the necessity of proper citation, offering guidance on how to rectify the assignment. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between the university's academic integrity policies and the student's desire to present their work effectively. Need for careful judgment arises from balancing the imperative to uphold academic standards with the responsibility to guide students towards ethical academic conduct. The correct approach involves a direct and transparent conversation with the student about the university's specific regulations regarding plagiarism and the proper citation of sources. This approach is ethically sound and aligns with the regulatory framework of academic institutions, which mandates the prevention of academic dishonesty. By clearly explaining the university's policy and the consequences of non-compliance, the instructor upholds the integrity of the academic process and educates the student on responsible scholarship. This proactive measure ensures that the student understands the boundaries and can rectify their work accordingly, fostering a culture of honesty. An incorrect approach that involves overlooking the issue or simply advising the student to be more careful, without referencing specific university regulations, fails to address the core problem of potential academic misconduct. This passive stance undermines the university's commitment to academic integrity and leaves the student vulnerable to future disciplinary action. It also fails to provide the student with the concrete guidance needed to understand and adhere to the established rules. Another incorrect approach, which is to immediately report the student for plagiarism without first engaging in a dialogue, is overly punitive and bypasses the educational aspect of academic integrity. While reporting is a necessary step if misconduct is confirmed, an initial conversation allows for clarification, potential misunderstanding, and an opportunity for the student to learn and correct their behavior. This approach can be seen as a failure to exercise professional discretion and a lack of commitment to student development. A further incorrect approach, such as suggesting the student remove the borrowed content without explaining why it constitutes plagiarism or how to properly attribute it, is also problematic. This approach might resolve the immediate symptom, but does not address the underlying lack of understanding regarding academic honesty and citation practices. It fails to equip the student with the knowledge to avoid similar issues in the future, thus not fully fulfilling the instructor's role in fostering ethical academic behavior. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve 1. Understanding the specific academic integrity policies of AGH University of Science and Technology. 2. Assessing the situation for potential academic misconduct. 3. Engaging in a direct, educational conversation with the student, clearly outlining the relevant policies and expectations. 4. Providing guidance on proper citation and attribution. And 5. Escalating the matter according to university procedures if the student remains unwilling or unable to comply with academic integrity standards. Question 3. Operational review demonstrates that a candidate's submitted project for the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance examination contains a minor formatting inconsistency that does not affect the substantive content or the candidate's demonstrated understanding of the subject matter, as per the examination guidelines. The review committee must decide how to proceed. Option A. Request the candidate to resubmit the project with the formatting corrected, even though the inconsistency does not affect the core content, to ensure absolute adherence to all submission requirements. Option B. Conduct a thorough review of the project against all stated criteria in the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance examination guidelines, documenting the minor inconsistency and its lack of impact on the overall assessment, and proceeding with the evaluation based on the substantive merit. Option C. Overlook the formatting inconsistency without any formal acknowledgement or documentation, proceeding with the evaluation as if no deviation occurred to avoid penalizing the candidate for a trivial error. Option D. Immediately disqualify the candidate due to the formatting inconsistency, as any deviation from the submission guidelines, however minor, is grounds for rejection according to a strict interpretation of the rules. The correct answer is B. Conduct a thorough review of the project against all stated criteria in the AGH University of Science and Technology Entrance Examination Guidelines, documenting the minor inconsistency and its lack of impact on the overall assessment, and proceeding with the evaluation based on the substantive merit. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the need to balance academic integrity with the university's commitment to fair and transparent admissions processes, as dictated by the AGH University of Science and Technology's internal regulations and guidelines for entrance examinations. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting and applying these specific regulations to a situation where a candidate's submission might be borderline. Careful judgment is required to ensure that the university's standards are upheld without unfairly penalizing a candidate. The correct approach involves a thorough, objective review of the candidate's submission against the established criteria outlined in the AGH University of Science and Technology's entrance examination guidelines. This approach prioritizes adherence to the university's specific regulatory framework, ensuring that all candidates are evaluated consistently and fairly. The justification for this approach is rooted in the principle of regulatory compliance, which mandates that all admissions processes must strictly follow the documented rules and procedures set forth by the university. This ensures fairness, transparency, and the integrity of the selection process, preventing arbitrary decisions. An incorrect approach that involves immediately disqualifying the candidate based on a subjective interpretation of a minor deviation fails to adhere to the university's established review process. This bypasses the required objective assessment and could lead to an unfair outcome, potentially violating the spirit of the university's regulations, which likely include provisions for handling minor discrepancies or ambiguities. Another incorrect approach, which is to overlook the deviation entirely without proper documentation or justification, also undermines the regulatory framework. While seemingly lenient, this can create a precedent for inconsistent application of rules and may be perceived as favoritism, compromising the overall fairness and auditability of the admissions process. It fails to demonstrate due diligence in applying the university's stated criteria. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, clearly identify the relevant university regulations and guidelines pertaining to the entrance examination and candidate submissions. Second, objectively assess the candidate's submission against these specific criteria, noting any deviations. Third, if a deviation is identified, consult the university's internal procedures for handling such cases, which may involve seeking clarification from a designated committee or supervisor. Fourth, document the entire process, including the assessment, any consultations, and the final decision, ensuring transparency and accountability. This structured approach ensures that decisions are grounded in the university's regulatory framework and ethical principles of fairness and integrity. Question 4. Comparative studies suggest that the integrity of university entrance examinations is paramount for maintaining academic standards. Considering the specific regulatory framework and guidelines for the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam, which of the following actions, if undertaken by a candidate during the examination, would be considered a direct violation of the established rules and ethical principles governing the assessment? Option A. Requesting clarification from the invigilator regarding the wording of a specific question, provided such clarification does not reveal the answer or provide an unfair advantage. Option B. Utilizing a calculator that has been approved by the examination board for use in specific sections of the exam. Option C. Consulting a pre-written set of notes containing formulas and definitions that were not explicitly permitted for use during the examination. Option D. Completing all sections of the examination, using only the knowledge and skills acquired through personal study and preparation, and adhering to all time limits and instructions provided by the invigilators. The correct answer is D. Completing all sections of the examination using only the knowledge and skills acquired through personal study and preparation, and adhering to all time limits and instructions provided by the invigilators. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable results in a high-stakes entrance examination. The candidate's actions, if they involve any form of unauthorized assistance or misrepresentation, directly contravene the principles of fair competition and merit-based selection, which are foundational to the AGH University of Science and Technology's admission process. Careful judgment is required to uphold these principles while ensuring a fair evaluation of all applicants. The correct approach involves adhering strictly to the examination regulations and guidelines provided by AGH University of Science and Technology. This means completing the examination independently, without any external assistance, and ensuring all submitted work is original. This approach is justified by the university's commitment to academic integrity, as outlined in its examination rules and ethical conduct policies. These regulations are designed to ensure that admission decisions are based on a candidate's genuine knowledge and abilities, fostering a culture of honesty and respect within the academic community. An incorrect approach would be to seek or utilize any form of unauthorized assistance, such as consulting unauthorized materials, receiving help from another person, or using pre-prepared notes. This directly violates the examination regulations, which explicitly prohibit such actions. The ethical failure lies in dishonesty and an attempt to gain an unfair advantage over other candidates who are adhering to the rules. This undermines the credibility of the examination process and the university's admission standards. Another incorrect approach would be to misrepresent one's qualifications or identity during the examination process. This is a severe breach of trust and academic integrity, often carrying severe penalties including disqualification and potential blacklisting from future admissions. The regulatory failure is clear, as it violates rules pertaining to candidate verification and honesty. Ethically, it is a fraudulent act that deceives the institution and devalues the efforts of honest applicants. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a clear understanding and unwavering commitment to the specific regulatory framework governing the examination. Candidates must prioritize honesty and integrity above all else. When faced with a situation that might compromise these principles, the professional course of action is to withdraw from the examination or seek clarification from the examination authorities regarding any ambiguities in the rules, rather than engaging in any form of misconduct. The focus should always be on demonstrating one's own capabilities through legitimate means. Question 5. Compliance review shows that during the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance examination, an invigilator observed a candidate discreetly using a mobile phone for a brief period, which is strictly prohibited by the examination rules. What is the most appropriate immediate action for the invigilator to take? Option A. Report the observed incident with all details to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority for further investigation and action according to university regulations. Option B. Discreetly inform other invigilators about the candidate's behavior to gauge their opinions before taking any action. Option C. Ignore the observation to avoid disrupting the examination environment and potentially causing distress to other candidates. Option D. Immediately confiscate the candidate's examination paper and dismiss the candidate from the examination hall. The correct answer is A. Report the observed incident with all details to the chief invigilator or designated examination authority for further investigation and action according to university regulations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge related to academic integrity and the proper application of university regulations during the entrance examination process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need to uphold the integrity of the examination with the university's established procedures for handling potential irregularities. A careful judgment is required to ensure that any action taken is fair, consistent with the AGH University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations, and avoids prejudicing candidates without due process. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of escalating the observed anomaly to the designated examination authority. This ensures that the university's established procedures for investigating and resolving potential breaches of examination rules are followed. Specifically, it requires the invigilator to report the observed behavior to the chief invigilator or examination committee, providing all relevant details. This aligns with the principle of due process and allows for an impartial assessment of the situation based on the university's specific examination guidelines. The regulatory justification stems from the need to maintain a fair and transparent examination environment, as mandated by the AGH University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations, which would typically outline procedures for handling suspected misconduct. An incorrect approach would be to directly disqualify the candidate on the spot without following the established reporting and investigation protocol. This fails to adhere to the university's procedural fairness requirements and could lead to an unjust outcome if the observed behavior was misinterpreted or had an innocent explanation. Regulatory failure lies in bypassing the prescribed disciplinary procedures outlined in the AGH University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regulations. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the observation entirely. This constitutes a failure to uphold the integrity of the examination process and a dereliction of the invigilator's duty. Ethically and regulatorily, invigilators are responsible for ensuring a fair examination environment for all candidates, which includes addressing potential irregularities. Ignoring such an observation undermines the credibility of the entire examination. A further incorrect approach would be to discuss the observation with other candidates or staff not directly involved in the examination oversight. This breaches confidentiality and could create undue anxiety or influence among other candidates, thereby compromising the examination's integrity and potentially violating the AGH University of Science and Technology's examination conduct policies. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding and internalizing the specific regulations of the AGH University of Science and Technology's entrance exam regarding candidate conduct and invigilator responsibilities. 2. Observing and documenting the anomaly objectively and factually. 3. Immediately reporting the observation to the designated authority, e.g., Chief Invigilator, as per the established protocol. 4. Cooperating fully with any subsequent investigation, providing accurate information without making premature judgments. 5. Maintaining strict confidentiality throughout the process. Question 6. Regulatory review indicates that AGH University of Science and Technology is considering the integration of AI-powered tools to assist in the initial screening and evaluation of applications for its entrance examinations. Which of the following approaches best aligns with the university's regulatory framework and ethical obligations concerning academic integrity and fair admissions? Option A. Conduct a thorough review of AGH University of Science and Technology's existing regulations, policies, and ethical guidelines related to academic integrity, admissions, and the use of technology in assessments, and seek clarification from the relevant university bodies if ambiguities exist before any implementation. Option B. Proceed with the implementation of AI tools, assuming that their use is permissible in the absence of explicit prohibitions within the current university regulations, and monitor for any immediate issues. Option C. Immediately adopt AI tools that are widely used in other universities' admissions processes, believing that their established use elsewhere implies compliance with AGH University of Science and Technology standards. Option D. Develop and implement AI tools internally without consulting any existing university regulations or seeking external advice, prioritizing speed and innovation in the admissions process. The correct answer is B. Proceed with the implementation of AI tools, assuming that their use is permissible in the absence of explicit prohibitions within the current university regulations, and monitor for any immediate issues. Explanation. This scenario presents a challenge in navigating the ethical and regulatory landscape surrounding academic integrity and the use of AI in admissions processes. The university entrance exam at AGH University of Science and Technology, like many academic institutions, has specific regulations and guidelines designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and the prevention of academic misconduct. The core challenge lies in balancing the potential benefits of AI tools with the imperative to uphold these established principles. A professional decision-maker must consider how the application of AI aligns with the university's stated policies on academic honesty, data privacy, and the integrity of the admissions process. The correct approach involves a thorough review of existing AGH University of Science and Technology regulations concerning the use of artificial intelligence in academic assessments and admissions. This approach prioritizes adherence to the established legal and ethical framework of the institution. Specifically, it requires identifying any explicit prohibition or guidelines on AI use in the context of entrance examination. And if such guidelines are absent or ambiguous, it necessitates a proactive step to seek clarification from the relevant university authorities or ethics committee. This ensures that any decision made is compliant with the university's internal policies and external regulatory obligations, safeguarding the integrity of the examination and the fairness of the admissions process. This aligns with the principle of regulatory compliance, which mandates that all actions taken by the university and its stakeholders must be in accordance with its own rules and any overarching educational laws. An incorrect approach would be to unilaterally implement AI-driven assessment tools without a comprehensive understanding of AGH University of Science and Technology's specific regulations. This could lead to violations of academic integrity policies, potentially compromising the validity of the entrance exam results and exposing the university to reputational damage and legal challenges. Another incorrect approach would be to assume that the absence of explicit prohibition means acceptance, without considering the spirit of existing regulations or the potential for unintended consequences. This demonstrates a lack of due diligence and a failure to proactively address potential ethical concerns, which is contrary to the professional responsibility of maintaining a fair and transparent academic environment. The professional decision-making process in such situations should begin with a comprehensive understanding of the relevant regulatory framework. This involves consulting university statutes, examination regulations, and any specific guidelines pertaining to technological advancement in academic processes. If clarity is lacking, the next step is to engage in a consultative process with relevant stakeholders, such as the academic council, admissions committee, or legal department, to interpret existing rules or to propose new guidelines that address the emerging technology. This iterative process of review, consultation, and informed decision-making is crucial for ensuring that technological adoption is both beneficial and compliant with ethical and regulatory standards. Question 7. Consider a scenario where an aspiring student is preparing their application for the AGH University of Science and Technology. They have a strong academic record from their previous studies, but are unsure about the precise documentation and any specific examinations required for their chosen program at AGH. They have heard general information about university entrance procedures in Poland, but are not certain if these apply universally or if AGH has unique stipulations. Which of the following actions would be the most appropriate and compliant way for the applicant to proceed with their application preparation? Option A. Seek advice from friends or online forums that discuss university admissions in Poland, prioritizing anecdotal evidence and informal recommendations over official sources. Option B. Rely on general knowledge of Polish university entrance procedures and assume that the requirements for AGH will be similar to other institutions they have researched. Option C. Focus primarily on gathering academic transcripts and personal statements, assuming that these are the only critical components of any university application and that specific program requirements are secondary. Option D. Thoroughly research and consult the official admission regulations and guidelines published by the AGH University of Science and Technology for the specific program they wish to enter, paying close attention to academic prerequisites, required documents, and any stipulated entrance assessments. The correct answer is D. Thoroughly research and consult the official admission regulations and guidelines published by the AGH University of Science and Technology for the specific program they wish to enter, paying close attention to academic prerequisites, required documents, and any stipulated entrance assessments. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to navigate the specific admission requirements of the AGH University of Science and Technology, which are governed by its internal regulations and potentially broader Polish higher education law. Misinterpreting these requirements can lead to an unsuccessful application, wasted effort, and potential disappointment. The core of the challenge lies in accurately identifying and applying the correct criteria for admission, distinguishing between general academic prerequisites and those specifically mandated by AGH. The correct approach involves a thorough review of the official AGH University of Science and Technology admission guidelines for the relevant academic year and program of study. This includes understanding the stipulated academic qualifications, any required entrance examinations or interviews, and the specific documentation needed. The regulatory justification stems from the principle of adherence to institutional rules, which are designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and the selection of suitably qualified candidates. Ethical considerations also demand that applicants present accurate information and meet all stated requirements. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on general university admission standards without consulting AGH's specific regulations would fail because it ignores the unique criteria set by the institution. This is a regulatory failure as it disregards the explicit rules of the university. Another incorrect approach, which relies on informal advice or outdated information, is also problematic. This constitutes both a regulatory failure, not adhering to current guidelines, and an ethical lapse if it leads to the submission of incomplete or inaccurate application materials. A third incorrect approach, prioritizing personal preference over stated requirements, demonstrates a lack of understanding of the application process and a failure to comply with the established framework. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a systematic approach. First, identify the specific institution and program of interest. Second, locate and meticulously review the official admission regulations and guidelines for that institution and program. Third, cross-reference personal qualifications and circumstances against these requirements. And fourth, seek clarification from the university's admissions office if any aspect of the regulations is unclear. This structured process ensures compliance and maximizes the chances of a successful application. Question 8. Strategic planning requires AGH University of Science and Technology to secure additional funding for its research infrastructure. Considering the regulatory framework governing Polish higher education institutions, which of the following approaches best aligns with principles of sustainable development and academic integrity? Option A. Reducing funding for core academic departments and student support services to reallocate resources towards a single, high-profile research project, regardless of its long-term viability. Option B. Implementing significant, across-the-board tuition fee increases for all students to immediately cover the funding gap, without exploring alternative revenue streams. Option C. Prioritizing the acquisition of grants from national and international research foundations, alongside developing a diversified endowment fund through ethical investment strategies and philanthropic partnerships. Option D. Engaging in speculative financial investments with high potential returns, but also significant risk, without thorough due diligence or regulatory oversight. The correct answer is C. Prioritizing the acquisition of grants from national and international research foundations, alongside developing a diversified endowment fund through ethical investment strategies and philanthropic partnerships. Explanation: this scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the immediate need for resources with the long-term sustainability and ethical considerations of the university's operations. The AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam context implies a focus on academic integrity, responsible resource allocation, and adherence to Polish higher education regulations. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any strategic planning decisions align with the university's mission and legal obligations, avoiding short-sighted solutions that could compromise its future or reputation. The correct approach involves a comprehensive assessment of all potential funding sources, prioritizing those that are sustainable, ethically sound, and aligned with the university's academic and research objectives. This includes exploring grants, endowments, and partnerships that support long-term growth and innovation, while also considering the potential impact on student fees and the overall student experience. Regulatory justification stems from the principles of good governance and financial stewardship expected of public institutions under Polish law, which mandates responsible use of public funds and adherence to ethical standards in all university activities. An incorrect approach that focuses solely on immediate cost-cutting, without considering the impact on academic quality or student welfare, would be professionally unacceptable. This could lead to a decline in educational standards, reduced research output, and a negative impact on the university's reputation, potentially violating principles of academic excellence and the university's duty to its students. Another incorrect approach that prioritizes short-term, high-risk funding ventures without adequate due diligence or consideration of ethical implications would also be a failure. This could expose the university to financial instability, reputational damage, and potential legal repercussions if the ventures are found to be unethical or non-compliant with Polish financial regulations. A third incorrect approach that involves compromising academic integrity or research ethics to secure funding would be a severe ethical and regulatory breach. This directly undermines the core mission of the university and would be in direct violation of academic freedom and ethical research conduct principles enshrined in Polish higher education law. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve a multi-stakeholder consultation, including faculty, administration, and potentially student representatives. A thorough risk assessment should be conducted for each proposed strategy, evaluating its financial, academic, ethical, and reputational implications. Decisions should be guided by a clear understanding of the university's strategic goals, its legal and regulatory environment, and its commitment to academic excellence and ethical conduct. Question 9. The investigation demonstrates that a candidate, during the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance examination, was observed by a proctor to be repeatedly looking at a small, concealed device in their palm during a critical section of the exam. The proctor, following university protocol, confiscated the device and noted the observation in their report. The university's examination committee is now tasked with determining the appropriate course of action. Option A. Conduct a thorough review of the confiscated device and the candidate's exam paper, interview the candidate to understand the circumstances, and then apply sanctions strictly in accordance with the AGH University of Science and Technology's examination regulations regarding academic misconduct. Option B. Dismiss the allegation as a minor distraction, assuming the device was not used for cheating, and proceed with grading the candidate's exam paper as normal. Option C. Forward the case to external legal authorities for prosecution, without first conducting an internal university investigation or allowing the candidate to respond. Option D. Immediately disqualify the candidate from the examination and ban them from future AGH University of Science and Technology admissions based on the proctor's observation alone. Correct answer is A. Conduct a thorough review of the confiscated device and the candidate's exam paper, interview the candidate to understand the circumstances, and then apply sanctions strictly in accordance with the AGH University of Science and Technology's examination regulations regarding academic misconduct. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge due to the inherent conflict between academic integrity and the pressure to achieve favorable outcomes in a high-stakes entrance examination. The candidate's actions, if proven, could undermine the fairness and validity of the admission process, which is governed by the AGH University of Science and Technology's internal regulations and the broader principles of academic honesty expected of all applicants. Careful judgment is required to ensure that any disciplinary action is proportionate and adheres strictly to the established examination rules and procedures. The correct approach involves a thorough and impartial investigation into the alleged misconduct, strictly adhering to the AGH University of Science and Technology's examination regulations. This means gathering all relevant evidence, providing the candidate with an opportunity to present their defense, and making a decision based solely on the facts and the university's established disciplinary framework. This approach upholds academic integrity, ensures fairness to all applicants, and maintains the credibility of the examination process. The regulatory justification lies in the university's responsibility to maintain a fair and equitable admission system, as outlined in its examination rules and student conduct policies. Ethically, it aligns with the principle of justice and due process. An incorrect approach that involves immediate disqualification without a proper investigation fails to provide the candidate with due process, a fundamental ethical and procedural requirement. This action would be a violation of the university's own disciplinary procedures, which typically mandate an investigation before sanctions are imposed. Another incorrect approach, such as ignoring the allegations due to the candidate's perceived potential, would compromise academic integrity and create an unfair advantage for one applicant over others, violating the principle of equal opportunity and the spirit of the examination. Furthermore, attempting to influence the outcome based on external factors or personal biases, rather than the evidence and regulations, would be a severe ethical breach and a violation of professional conduct. The professional decision-making process in such situations should follow a structured approach. First, acknowledge and document the allegation. Second, initiate a formal investigation in accordance with established university procedures. Third, collect and analyze all evidence impartially. Fourth, provide the accused with a fair hearing and the opportunity to respond. Fifth, make a decision based strictly on the evidence and the applicable regulations. And finally, communicate the decision and any consequences clearly and transparently. Question 10. The analysis reveals that a proposed interdisciplinary research project at AGH University of Science and Technology involves novel experimental procedures with potential environmental and reputational implications for the institution. Which of the following approaches best reflects a foundational risk assessment strategy suitable for initial evaluation by prospective students? Option A. Focusing solely on compliance with current environmental regulations without assessing broader institutional risks. Option B. Listing all available risk mitigation techniques without considering their applicability to the specific project. Option C. Identifying the most appropriate qualitative risk assessment framework to categorize potential impacts on university infrastructure and reputation, considering the project's novelty. Option D. Calculating the precise financial exposure associated with potential environmental incidents. The correct answer is C. Identifying the most appropriate qualitative risk assessment framework to categorize potential impacts on university infrastructure and reputation, considering the project's novelty. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge in balancing the need for comprehensive risk assessment with the practical constraints of an entrance examination. The professionally challenging aspect lies in identifying the most effective and ethically sound method for evaluating a candidate's understanding of risk assessment principles within the specific context of the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam's regulatory framework. This requires careful judgment to ensure the assessment is relevant, fair, and aligned with the exam's objectives, without becoming overly complex or requiring specialized knowledge beyond the scope of an entrance exam. The correct approach involves a scenario-based question that requires the candidate to identify the primary risk assessment methodology most appropriate for evaluating the potential impact of a new, innovative research project on the university's infrastructure and reputation. This approach is correct because it directly tests the candidate's ability to apply risk assessment concepts to a realistic, albeit simplified academic context, aligning with the likely expectations of an entrance exam. It requires conceptual understanding rather than calculation, focusing on the qualitative aspects of risk identification and evaluation. This aligns with the general principles of risk management education, which often begin with understanding methodologies before delving into quantitative analysis. The AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam, as a gateway to higher education, would prioritize assessing foundational understanding and critical thinking skills in applying such principles. An incorrect approach would be to ask the candidate to perform a detailed quantitative risk analysis of a hypothetical project. This is incorrect because it moves beyond the scope of a typical entrance exam, requiring specialized quantitative skills and data that would not be readily available or expected. It fails to adhere to the exam's likely objective of assessing conceptual grasp and application. Another incorrect approach would be to ask the candidate to simply list different risk assessment tools without context. This is incorrect because it tests rote memorization rather than the ability to apply knowledge. It does not demonstrate an understanding of asterisk when asterisk and asterisk, why asterisk certain tools or methodologies are appropriate, which is a crucial aspect of risk assessment. A further incorrect approach would be to focus on the legal compliance aspects of risk assessment without considering the broader impact on the university. While legal compliance is a component of risk management, an entrance exam should aim for a more holistic understanding of risk, encompassing operational, reputational, and strategic considerations relevant to an academic institution. The professional decision-making process for similar situations involves first understanding the purpose and scope of the assessment. For an entrance exam, this means prioritizing conceptual understanding and application over detailed technical execution. The assessment should be designed to differentiate candidates based on their grasp of fundamental principles and their ability to think critically about how these principles apply to relevant scenarios. The chosen question should be clear, concise, and directly related to the core competencies being evaluated, ensuring fairness and relevance to all candidates. Question 11. Benchmark analysis indicates that during the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance examination, an invigilator observes a candidate exhibiting behavior that strongly suggests unauthorized assistance. The invigilator is aware of the university's strict academic integrity policies. What is the most appropriate immediate course of action for the invigilator to uphold the examination's integrity while adhering to university regulations? Option A. Discuss the observed behavior with other invigilators and candidates to gather opinions on whether the behavior constitutes a violation before taking any action. Option B. Confront the candidate directly and confiscate their examination materials on the spot, informing them of their immediate disqualification from the exam. Option C. Ignore the behavior to avoid disrupting the examination environment and potentially causing distress to other candidates, assuming it might be a misunderstanding. Option D. Discreetly document the observed behavior and the candidate's details. Then report the incident to the chief invigilator or examination board immediately after the examination concludes, following the university's established protocol for reporting irregularities. The correct answer is D. Discreetly document the observed behavior and the candidate's details. Then report the incident to the chief invigilator or examination board immediately after the examination concludes, following the university's established protocol for reporting irregularities. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in balancing academic integrity with the practicalities of a high-stakes entrance examination. The core difficulty lies in identifying and responding appropriately to potential breaches of examination regulations, without compromising the fairness of the assessment process for all candidates. The pressure to admit qualified students, while upholding the integrity of the AGH University of Science and Technology's admission standards, requires careful judgment and adherence to established protocols. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a systematic and documented process of investigation. This begins with discrete observation and evidence gathering, followed by a formal report to the examination board or designated authority. This approach is justified by the AGH University of Science and Technology's examination regulations, which mandate fair and impartial assessment and outline procedures for handling suspected irregularities. The emphasis is on due process, ensuring that any accusations are investigated thoroughly and impartially, protecting both the integrity of the exam and the rights of the candidate. Incorrect approaches analysis. One incorrect approach involves immediate disqualification without a proper investigation. This violates the principle of natural justice and the university's examination regulations, which typically require evidence and a hearing process before punitive action is taken. It risks penalizing a candidate unfairly and could lead to reputational damage for the university. Another incorrect approach is to ignore the suspected irregularity. This undermines the integrity of the examination process and the university's commitment to fair admissions. It creates an uneven playing field for other candidates who adhere to the rules and can lead to the admission of individuals who have not earned their place legitimately. A third incorrect approach is to discuss the suspected irregularity with other candidates or unauthorized personnel. This constitutes a breach of confidentiality and can prejudice any subsequent investigation. It also risks spreading misinformation and creating an atmosphere of distrust among candidates and invigilators. Professional reasoning. Professionals facing such situations should follow a structured decision-making process. First, they must be thoroughly familiar with the AGH University of Science and Technology's examination regulations and codes of conduct. Second, they should prioritize objective observation and evidence collection. Third, they must report any suspected breaches through the designated channels, maintaining confidentiality and impartiality throughout the process. Finally, they should trust the established procedures for investigation and adjudication, avoiding personal judgment or premature action. Question 12. To address the challenge of streamlining the student admission process at AGH University of Science and Technology, which approach best balances efficiency gains with adherence to the university's established regulatory framework and ethical guidelines for admissions. Option A. Rely on the personal experience of senior administrative staff to redesign the admission process, prioritizing perceived speed improvements over documented procedures. Option B. Engage an external consulting firm to overhaul the admission process based on best practices from other universities, without first assessing AGH University's specific regulatory requirements and internal policies. Option C. Conduct a comprehensive review of current admission workflows. Gather feedback from admission staff and prospective students. Analyze admission data to identify bottlenecks and propose changes aligned with AGH University's official admission regulations and ethical standards. Option D. Implement immediate changes to the online application portal based on common complaints received through informal student channels, without formal review or consultation with the admissions committee. The correct answer is C. Conduct a comprehensive review of current admission workflows, gather feedback from admission staff and prospective students, analyze admission data to identify bottlenecks, and propose changes aligned with AGH University's official admission regulations and ethical standards. Explanation: the scenario presents a common challenge in academic institutions, optimizing processes to enhance efficiency and student experience while adhering to established regulations and ethical standards. The professional challenge lies in balancing innovation with compliance, ensuring that any proposed changes do not violate the internal regulations of AGH University of Science and Technology or broader educational guidelines. Careful judgment is required to identify solutions that are both effective and permissible. The correct approach involves a systematic review of existing admission procedures, focusing on identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement through data analysis and stakeholder consultation, all within the framework of AGH University's official admission regulations and guidelines. This method ensures that proposed changes are grounded in evidence, aligned with institutional policy, and consider the perspectives of those affected, such as prospective students and administrative staff. This adheres to principles of good governance and operational excellence expected within an academic institution. An incorrect approach that relies solely on anecdotal evidence or personal opinions, without consulting official documentation or relevant stakeholders, fails to meet the regulatory requirements of the university. It risks implementing changes that are non-compliant, unfair, or ineffective, potentially leading to disputes or a decline in the quality of the admission process. Another incorrect approach that bypasses established university procedures for process review and approval, such as seeking external consultants without internal authorization or ignoring feedback from the admissions committee, violates the internal governance structure of AGH University. This can lead to decisions that are not properly vetted, lack institutional buy-in, and may not align with the strategic objectives or legal obligations of the university. A further incorrect approach that prioritizes speed of implementation over thoroughness and compliance, such as making immediate changes based on a single perceived issue without a comprehensive assessment, is professionally unsound. It overlooks the potential for unintended consequences and the importance of a structured, compliant process for any significant operational adjustments. The professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the existing regulatory framework and internal policies governing the process. 2. Gathering objective data and feedback from all relevant stakeholders. 3. Identifying specific areas for improvement based on the gathered information. 4. Developing potential solutions that are compliant with regulations and ethical standards. 5. Evaluating the feasibility and impact of proposed solutions. 6. Seeking appropriate approvals and implementing changes in a structured, documented manner. 7. Monitoring the effectiveness of implemented changes and making further adjustments as needed. Question 13. The review process indicates that an applicant for the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam has submitted documentation for a qualification obtained from an institution outside of Poland. To ensure compliance with the university's admission framework, what is the most appropriate course of action for the applicant regarding this prior qualification? Option A. Directly consult the official admission regulations and guidelines published by the AGH University of Science and Technology to determine the specific requirements for recognizing foreign academic qualifications and follow those procedures precisely. Option B. Submit the qualification documentation without further verification, trusting that the university's admissions committee will assess its validity during the review. Option C. Seek advice from fellow applicants or online forums to gauge the general acceptance of similar qualifications for admission to AGH University. Option D. Assume that the qualification is equivalent and acceptable as it is from a recognized educational institution and proceed with the application. The correct answer is A. Directly consult the official admission regulations and guidelines published by the AGH University of Science and Technology to determine the specific requirements for recognizing foreign academic qualifications and follow those procedures precisely. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an applicant to demonstrate an understanding of the AGH University of Science and Technology's specific admission regulations, particularly concerning the validity and acceptance of prior academic achievements. The core of the challenge lies in interpreting the university's guidelines for recognizing qualifications obtained outside of its direct curriculum and ensuring compliance with any stipulated deadlines or documentation requirements. Careful judgment is needed to avoid misinterpreting the rules, which could lead to an invalid application. The correct approach involves meticulously reviewing the AGH University of Science and Technology's official admission regulations and guidelines pertaining to the recognition of prior learning or equivalent qualifications. This approach is correct because it directly adheres to the university's established framework for admissions. By consulting the specific regulatory documents, the applicant ensures that their understanding of what constitutes an acceptable qualification and the process for its submission is accurate and in line with the institution's requirements. This demonstrates a commitment to following the prescribed procedures, a fundamental aspect of regulatory compliance. An incorrect approach would be to assume that a qualification obtained from another institution is automatically equivalent or acceptable, without verifying it against AGH University's specific criteria. This fails to acknowledge that universities have their own distinct admission standards and may have specific requirements for recognizing external qualifications, such as accreditation, course content alignment, or minimum grade requirements. Another incorrect approach would be to rely on informal advice or hearsay from peers or unofficial sources regarding the acceptance of qualifications. This bypasses the official regulatory channels and risks acting on misinformation, which is a direct violation of the principle of adhering to established guidelines. A further incorrect approach would be to submit incomplete or improperly documented evidence of prior qualifications, hoping it will be accepted. This demonstrates a lack of diligence in understanding and fulfilling the explicit documentation requirements outlined in the university's regulations. The professional reasoning process for such situations involves a systematic approach. First, identify the specific regulatory requirement in question, in this case, the acceptance of prior academic qualifications. Second, locate the authoritative source of these regulations, the AGH University of Science and Technology's official admission guidelines. Third, carefully read and interpret the relevant sections, paying close attention to any conditions, deadlines, or documentation mandates. Fourth, ensure all actions taken are in direct alignment with these interpreted regulations. If ambiguity exists, seek clarification from the official admissions office of the university. Question 14. What factors determine the most effective and ethically sound approach to optimizing the AGH University of Science and Technology's entrance examination process to enhance efficiency while upholding fairness and academic integrity? Option A. A comprehensive analysis of each stage of the admissions process, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement that align with Polish higher education law and university regulation, ensuring transparency and equal opportunity. Option B. Focusing solely on cost-saving measures in the examination administration, such as reducing staffing levels and security protocols. Option C. Implementing automated evaluation systems without thorough validation to significantly reduce administrative workload and costs. Option D. Prioritizing the reduction of the examination duration and the number of assessment questions to speed up the overall admissions timeline. Correct answer is A. A comprehensive analysis of each stage of the admissions process, identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement that align with Polish higher education law and university regulations, ensuring transparency and equal opportunity. Explanation. This scenario is professionally challenging because it requires balancing the university's need for efficient resource allocation with the ethical imperative to provide a fair and transparent admissions process. The entrance exam is a critical gateway, and any perceived or actual bias in its administration can undermine the integrity of the institution and lead to legal challenges. Careful judgment is required to ensure that process optimization does not inadvertently disadvantage certain applicant groups or compromise the quality of assessment. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the entire admissions process, from application intake to final candidate selection, with a focus on identifying bottlenecks and areas for improvement that enhance fairness and efficiency without compromising academic rigor. This includes analyzing the time taken for each stage, the clarity of instructions, the accessibility of information for applicants, and the consistency of evaluation criteria. The regulatory framework for university admissions, as governed by Polish higher education law and AGH universities' internal regulations, mandates equal opportunity and non-discrimination. Optimizing processes in line with these principles ensures that the university adheres to its legal obligations and ethical standards by promoting transparency, fairness, and merit-based selection. This approach aligns with the principle of good governance and the university's commitment to academic excellence. An incorrect approach would be to solely focus on reducing the time taken for the examination itself without considering the broader implications. This might involve shortening question types or reducing the scope of assessment, which could compromise the depth of knowledge being tested and unfairly disadvantage candidates who require more time to articulate their understanding. This fails to meet the regulatory requirement for comprehensive and fair assessment. Another incorrect approach would be to automate large parts of the evaluation process without rigorous validation and human oversight. While automation can increase efficiency, an unvalidated system could introduce algorithmic bias, leading to systematic errors in scoring and potentially discriminating against certain applicant profiles. This violates the principle of fair evaluation and could contravene anti-discrimination provisions within Polish law. A further incorrect approach would be to prioritize cost reduction in process optimization above all else, for example, by reducing the number of proctors or using less secure examination environments. This could compromise the integrity of the examination, leading to potential cheating and undermining the validity of the results. Such an approach would fail to uphold the university's responsibility to ensure a secure and fair testing environment, which is a fundamental ethical and regulatory expectation. Professionals should employ a decision-making framework that begins with clearly defining the objectives of process optimization, ensuring they align with regulatory requirements and ethical principles. This involves stakeholder consultation, including faculty, admissions staff, and potentially student representatives, to gather diverse perspectives. A thorough analysis of the current process, identifying key performance indicators related to efficiency, fairness, and quality, is crucial. Potential solutions should be evaluated not only for their efficiency gains, but also for their impact on fairness, accessibility, and adherence to legal and ethical standards. Pilot testing and continuous monitoring are essential to ensure that implemented changes achieve the desired outcomes without unintended negative consequences. Question 15. The monitoring system demonstrates a statistically significant deviation in response patterns for a group of candidates during the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance examination, raising concerns about potential collusion or unauthorized assistance. Which of the following actions best upholds the university's commitment to academic integrity and fair assessment? Option A. Conduct a brief, informal inquiry with the candidates whose patterns were flagged without formal documentation to gauge their understanding of the examination rules. Option B. Initiate a formal review process to investigate the flagged deviations, gathering all relevant data and providing affected candidates an opportunity to respond before any conclusions are drawn. Option C. Disregard the monitoring system's alerts, assuming they are likely false positives due to system calibration issues, and proceed with the examination results as is. Option D. Immediately disqualify all candidates whose response patterns triggered the monitoring system's alerts to ensure the integrity of the examination results. The correct answer is B. Initiate a formal review process to investigate the flagged deviations, gathering all relevant data and providing affected candidates an opportunity to respond before any conclusions are drawn. Explanation. The scenario presents a challenge for the AGH University of Science and Technology's Admissions Committee, specifically concerning the integrity of the entrance examination process. The core difficulty lies in balancing the need for efficient and objective assessment with the ethical imperative to ensure fairness and prevent any form of academic misconduct. The monitoring system's demonstration of potential irregularities requires a nuanced response that upholds the university's academic standards and regulatory compliance. The correct approach involves a thorough, impartial investigation of the flagged irregularities, adhering strictly to the AGH University of Science and Technologies established examination regulations and internal policies. This approach prioritizes due process for all candidates involved, ensuring that any decisions made are based on verified evidence and are consistent with the principles of academic integrity. Specifically, this means initiating a formal review process, gathering all relevant data from the monitoring system, and providing affected candidates an opportunity to respond to any allegations before disciplinary action is taken. This aligns with the university's commitment to fair assessment and its responsibility to maintain the credibility of its entrance examinations, as implicitly required by its charter and any governing educational directives. An incorrect approach would be to immediately disqualify candidates based solely on the system's alerts without further investigation. This fails to acknowledge the possibility of technical errors within the monitoring system or misinterpretations of data, thereby violating principles of natural justice and potentially leading to unjust outcomes. Another incorrect approach would be to ignore the alerts altogether, which would represent a dereliction of duty in safeguarding the examination's integrity, and could expose the university to criticism regarding its oversight mechanisms. A third incorrect approach might be to conduct a superficial review that does not adequately document findings or provide a clear rationale for any decisions, undermining transparency and accountability. Professionals in this situation should employ a decision-making framework that begins with understanding the specific regulations governing examinations at AGH University of Science and Technology. This framework should include steps for evidence gathering, objective analysis, consultation with relevant university bodies, e.g., Academic Integrity Committee, and clear communication of findings and decisions. The emphasis should always be on a fair, transparent, and evidence-based process that protects the reputation and academic standards of the institution. Question 16. Market research demonstrates that prospective students are increasingly aware of the prestige and potential future career benefits associated with attending top-tier technical universities. An applicant to the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam has submitted their application, and during the review process, it becomes known that their family has significant influence within the technology sector and has previously made substantial donations to the university. This information is not part of the applicant's formal academic record or examination scores. How should the admissions committee proceed? Option A. Exclude the applicant from consideration due to the potential for undue influence, even though their academic record has not yet been fully assessed against the entrance exam criteria. Option B. Consider the applicant's family's influence and past donations as a positive factor that could enhance the university's reputation and future alumni network, potentially giving them a slight advantage in the admission process. Option C. Evaluate the applicant solely based on their performance in the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam and their submitted academic qualifications, as per the university's published admission regulation, without considering any external information about their family's influence or past donations. Option D. Inform the applicant that their family's connections might be beneficial and suggest they highlight these aspects in a supplementary statement to strengthen their application. Correct answer is C. Evaluate the applicant solely based on their performance in the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam and their submitted academic qualifications, as per the university's published admission regulations, without considering any external information about their family's influence or past donations. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires an individual to navigate the ethical and regulatory landscape of academic admissions while facing potential external pressures. The AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam, like any academic institution, operates under specific regulations and ethical guidelines designed to ensure fairness, transparency, and meritocracy in the selection process. The challenge lies in upholding these principles when presented with information that could be perceived as an unfair advantage. The correct approach involves strictly adhering to the established admission criteria and procedures of the AGH University of Science and Technology. This means evaluating all candidates, including the applicant in question, based solely on their academic merit, examination performance, and any other objective criteria outlined in the university's official admission regulations. This approach is correct because it aligns with the fundamental principles of fairness and equal opportunity, which are cornerstones of academic integrity. It upholds the regulatory framework of the AGH University of Science and Technology by ensuring that the admission process is impartial and based on predetermined, objective standards, thereby preventing any form of bias or undue influence. An incorrect approach would be to consider the information about the applicant's family connections or potential future contributions to the university's reputation as a factor in the admission decision. This is ethically unsound and likely violates the university's admission policies, which are designed to be merit-based. Such an approach introduces subjectivity and the potential for favoritism, undermining the integrity of the entrance examination and the admission process. It could also lead to legal challenges if other applicants are disadvantaged due to such considerations. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the applicant outright based on the information provided without a thorough review of their qualifications against the established criteria. While the information about family connections might raise a flag, the applicant still deserves to be assessed on their own merits according to the university's published admission standards. Failing to do so would be a breach of procedural fairness. The professional decision-making process in such situations should involve a commitment to transparency, fairness, and adherence to established rules. Professionals must first identify the relevant regulatory framework and ethical guidelines governing the situation. They should then objectively assess the applicant's qualifications against these criteria, disregarding any extraneous or potentially biasing information. If there is any ambiguity or conflict with regulations, seeking guidance from supervisors or the relevant university department is crucial. The ultimate goal is to ensure that decisions are justifiable, defensible, and in line with the institution's commitment to academic excellence and equitable treatment of all applicants. Question 17. The risk matrix shows a moderate likelihood of academic misconduct for a student whose submitted assignment bears significant similarities to a publicly available online source, with no citation. The university's academic integrity policy outlines a tiered approach to addressing plagiarism, ranging from a warning to expulsion, depending on the severity and intent. The faculty member responsible for the course has gathered the assignment and the identified online source. Which of the following represents the most appropriate initial course of action according to AGH University of Science and Technology's regulatory framework for academic integrity? Option A. Forward the assignment and source directly to the disciplinary committee for an immediate decision on the appropriate sanction. Option B. Discuss the matter informally with the student to understand their perspective without creating a formal record. Option C. Conduct a thorough review of the assignment and the source, document the extent of the similarity, and then formally notify the student of the allegation, providing them with an opportunity to respond before any decision is made. Option D. Immediately inform the student of the suspected plagiarism and issue a formal warning, as per the policy's lowest sanction. Correct answer is D. Immediately inform the student of the suspected plagiarism and issue a formal warning, as per the policy's lowest sanction. Explanation. The scenario presents a common challenge in academic settings where a student's academic integrity is questioned based on evidence of potential misconduct. The professional challenge lies in balancing the need to uphold the university's standards and regulations with fairness to the student, ensuring a thorough and impartial investigation. Careful judgment is required to avoid premature conclusions and to follow established procedures. The correct approach involves a systematic review of the evidence against the established academic integrity policies of AGH University of Science and Technology. This approach prioritizes due process and adherence to the university's regulatory framework. Specifically, it requires gathering all relevant information, providing the student with an opportunity to respond, and then making a decision based on the university's defined procedures for academic misconduct. This aligns with the principles of fairness and the need for evidence-based decision-making as mandated by university regulations. An incorrect approach would be to immediately impose a penalty without a formal investigation. This fails to respect the student's right to a fair hearing and bypasses the university's established disciplinary procedures, which are designed to ensure impartiality and thoroughness. Another incorrect approach would be to dismiss the concerns without proper investigation, which undermines the university's commitment to academic integrity and could allow misconduct to go unaddressed. A third incorrect approach would be to rely solely on hearsay or unverified information, as university regulations typically require concrete evidence for disciplinary actions. Professionals in academic administration should employ a decision-making framework that begins with identifying the alleged violation and the relevant university policies. This is followed by a fact-finding stage, which includes collecting evidence and interviewing relevant parties. The next step is to provide the accused with an opportunity to present their case. Finally, a decision is made based on the gathered evidence and in accordance with the university's established procedures and sanctions. Question 18. The evaluation methodology shows that all entrance exam submissions must be uploaded as a single PDF document. A prospective student, due to a technical malfunction on their device, is unable to combine their submission into a single PDF and can only submit it as a series of separate image files. The student is concerned that if they cannot find a solution, their application will be unfairly disadvantaged. What is the most ethically sound and professionally responsible course of action for the student? Option A. Immediately upload the separate image files and hope the examination board can process them. Option B. Attempt to find a workaround by using a different device or software to create the PDF, even if it means delaying the submission beyond the deadline. Option C. Contact the AGH University of Science and Technology Admissions Office or the designated examination administrator to explain the technical issue and request guidance on how to proceed. Option D. Submit the image files and then send a separate email to the examination board explaining the situation after the deadline has passed. Correct answer is A. Immediately upload the separate image files and hope the examination board can process them. Explanation. This scenario presents a professional challenge because it requires balancing the university's stated evaluation methodology with the ethical obligation to ensure fairness and academic integrity. The tension arises from a potential conflict between a rigid adherence to a predefined process and the need to accommodate unforeseen circumstances that might unfairly disadvantage a student. Careful judgment is required to determine if an exception is warranted and how to implement it without compromising the integrity of the overall evaluation system. The correct approach involves a transparent and documented process of seeking clarification and potential adjustment to the evaluation methodology. This demonstrates a commitment to fairness and due process. By consulting with the relevant academic authorities, e.g., the examination board or faculty responsible for the entrance exam, the student is not acting unilaterally, but is seeking an official resolution. This aligns with the ethical principle of seeking guidance and adhering to established procedures, even when those procedures may present a challenge. It also upholds the principle of fairness by ensuring that any deviation from the standard methodology is considered and approved by those with the authority to do so, thereby maintaining the integrity of the entrance examination. An incorrect approach of unilaterally altering the submission format without prior approval is professionally unacceptable. This bypasses the established procedures and undermines the authority of the examination board. It creates an unfair advantage for the student who deviates from the rules and could be seen as an attempt to circumvent the intended evaluation process. This violates the ethical principle of honesty and integrity in academic pursuits. Another incorrect approach of simply submitting the work in the altered format and hoping for the best is also professionally unsound. While it might seem like an attempt to complete the task, it ignores the importance of following established protocols and seeking necessary permissions. This demonstrates a lack of respect for the examination process and the rules set forth by the university. It also fails to address the core issue of the methodology's limitations in a constructive and ethical manner. A professional decision-making process for similar situations should involve 1. Understanding the established rules and procedures thoroughly. 2. Identifying any potential conflicts or challenges presented by the rules in a specific situation. 3. Proactively seeking clarification or guidance from the appropriate authorities before taking any action that deviates from the established procedures. 4. Documenting all communications and decisions made. 5. Adhering to the final guidance provided by the authorities. Question 19. The performance metrics show a substantial increase in the number of applications for the AGH University of Science and Technology's Faculty of Mechanical Engineering and Robotics. The admissions committee is concerned about maintaining the quality of admitted students while processing this higher volume efficiently. Which of the following actions best aligns with the AGH University's entrance examination regulations and ethical admission practices? Option A. Consider candidates' potential for future industry connections and alumni network contributions when assessing their application, even if their academic performance is borderline. Option B. Implement a tiered review process where applications with higher predicted scores are assessed first, and if capacity is reached, lower scoring applications are not fully reviewed. Option C. Conduct a thorough and consistent evaluation of all applications against the published academic requirements and admission criteria, utilizing additional reviewers if necessary to manage the workload. Option D. Expedite the review of applications from candidates who have participated in university-affiliated science competitions, even if their academic scores are slightly below the stated minimum, to encourage future engagement. The correct answer is D. Expedite the review of applications from candidates who have participated in university-affiliated science competitions, even if their academic scores are slightly below the stated minimum, to encourage future engagement. Explanation: the performance metrics show a significant increase in student applications for the AGH University of Science and Technology's engineering programs, exceeding previous year's trends. This surge presents a professional challenge for the admissions committee, requiring careful judgment to balance increased demand with maintaining academic standards and ensuring a fair selection process. The challenge lies in efficiently and equitably processing a larger volume of applications, while adhering strictly to the AGH University's established admission regulations and ethical guidelines for entrance exams. The correct approach involves a systematic review of all applications against the predefined admission criteria, as outlined in the AGH University's official entrance examination regulations. This includes verifying academic prerequisites, evaluating standardized test scores, if applicable and specified by the university, and assessing any supplementary application materials required by the university. This methodical process ensures that all candidates are judged on the same objective criteria, upholding fairness and transparency, which are fundamental ethical principles in academic admissions. Adherence to these regulations prevents bias and ensures that only qualified candidates are admitted, thereby preserving the academic integrity of the university. An incorrect approach would be to prioritize applications based on perceived prestige or potential future contributions, without a clear regulatory basis. This introduces subjectivity and potential bias, violating the principle of equal opportunity for all applicants. Another incorrect approach would be to relax the minimum academic requirements to accommodate a larger number of students, which undermines the academic rigor of the programs and the university's reputation. Furthermore, deviating from the established review process by giving undue weight to informal recommendations or personal connections, rather than objective merit as defined by the university's regulations, constitutes an ethical breach and a failure to comply with the spirit and letter of the admission framework. Professionals in admissions should employ a decision-making framework that begins with a thorough understanding of the governing regulations and ethical codes. This framework should prioritize objectivity, fairness, and transparency. When faced with increased application volumes, the process should be scaled up by allocating sufficient resources for review, rather than compromising the integrity of the evaluation criteria. Regular training on ethical conduct and adherence to university policies is crucial for all admissions personnel. In situations of high demand, it is essential to reaffirm the commitment to the established selection criteria and to document all decisions meticulously to ensure accountability. Question 20. Process analysis reveals that during the preparation period for the AGH University of Science and Technology entrance exam, a candidate discovers a significant number of specific questions that are likely to appear on the examination, along with their correct answers. This candidate is aware that sharing this information with other prospective applicants would provide them with an unfair advantage. Considering the regulatory framework and guidelines for this specific entrance exam, which of the following actions best upholds the principles of academic integrity and compliance? Option A. Refrain from sharing any specific questions or answers, and instead focus solely on personal preparation, while also reporting the discovery of such material through the official university channels. Option B. Discuss the general topics covered by the discovered questions with other applicants, hinting at the difficulty and nature of the examination without revealing exact questions or answers. Option C. Attempt to use the discovered questions and answers to prepare oneself thoroughly, and then remain silent about the discovery to avoid any potential complications. Option D. Immediately and discreetly share the specific questions and their answers with a select group of fellow applicants to help them succeed. The correct answer is D. Immediately and discreetly share the specific questions and their answers with a select group of fellow applicants to help them succeed. Explanation. Scenario analysis. This scenario presents a challenge in navigating the ethical and regulatory landscape surrounding academic integrity within the context of an entrance examination. The core difficulty lies in balancing the university's need to assess genuine aptitude with the applicant's potential desire to gain an unfair advantage. Misinterpreting or misapplying the examination's specific regulations can lead to severe consequences, including disqualification and reputational damage for both the applicant and the institution. Careful judgment is required to distinguish between legitimate preparation and prohibited actions. Correct approach analysis. The correct approach involves a thorough understanding and strict adherence to the AGH University of Science and Technology's official examination regulations. This means recognizing that any form of unauthorized assistance, including sharing or receiving specific questions or answers, constitutes a violation. The justification for this approach is rooted in the fundamental principles of fairness, meritocracy, and academic integrity, which are paramount in any educational institution's admission process. The university's regulations are designed to ensure a level playing field for all candidates, and compliance is a non-negotiable ethical and regulatory requirement. Incorrect approaches analysis. Providing specific questions or answers to other applicants before the examination is incorrect because it directly violates the principle of fairness and the explicit or implicit rules against collusion and cheating. This action undermines the integrity of the assessment process and gives an unfair advantage to those who receive the information. Seeking or accepting specific questions or answers from other applicants before the examination is also incorrect. This constitutes an attempt to gain an unfair advantage and is a clear breach of academic integrity. It demonstrates a lack of genuine preparation and a willingness to circumvent the established rules. Ignoring the potential for perceived impropriety by discussing general study strategies that might inadvertently reveal specific question types or areas of focus is incorrect. While discussing general strategies is usually permissible, if it crosses the line into revealing specific content or hints about the examination structure or difficulty in a way that could be exploited, it risks violating the spirit, if not the letter, of the regulations. This approach lacks the necessary caution and diligence to uphold academic standards. Professional reasoning. Professionals in academic settings, including those involved in admissions or examination administration, must adopt a proactive and principled stance on academic integrity. The decision-making process should involve 1. Clearly understanding the specific regulations governing the examination. 2. Prioritizing fairness and equal opportunity for all candidates. 3. Acting with transparency and avoiding any actions that could be construed as facilitating or engaging in academic misconduct. 4. Seeking clarification from official university channels if there is any ambiguity regarding the rules. 5. Reporting any observed or suspected violations through the appropriate university procedures.